Hello friends, welcome to Expert Guidance. Today in this video, we'll be covering the topic of fractions. Now, this is a very important topic for your maths paper. And this topic we are doing since Key Stage 2. So what we'll be doing in this video is that we'll be going over this whole topic and we'll be covering everything you have learned in your key stages up to GCSEs. So we'll be covering all these topics, and after doing all these topics, we'll be doing a sample questions on each of the concept so that you can have a better understanding of each of these topics. Now, what we'll be covering today in this video is we'll be covering understanding fractions, what are equivalent fractions, top-heavy or mixed fractions. Now, to do the fraction questions, it's important for you to know how to find the least common multiple and the highest common factor. So we'll be discussing that. We'll also be discussing ordering fractions. Then we'll come to how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide the fractions. We'll also cover fractions of an amount, and then we'll look over how to convert fractions to decimals and percentages and vice versa. And we'll also do fractions word problems. Now, I would recommend you to watch this video till the end because we'll be starting with the basics and eventually we'll be going over the complex problems. So if you follow it along, you'll find it very easy. So let's begin. Now, understanding fractions. What are fractions? Now, you must have seen fraction is something which is written like this. So the number at the top is the numerator and the number at the bottom is denominator. Now, fraction is that you have divided something which is a whole into some parts. So for example, if you see one whole and you divide it into two. So what is there? There are two parts. This is one part of two parts. So that is a half and a half. If you divide this whole into four parts, then each part will become 1/4. If you divide one whole into five parts, then each part will become 1/5. Similarly, you can divide it into 6, 7, and 8 parts. When you add all these parts together, you will get one whole together. Now, why we are discussing that? Because in key stages, they ask you to shade a fraction. So for example, if they ask you that you need to shade, let's suppose, a quarter. So what you will do, you will divide a figure into 4 equal parts and just shade one part. So this becomes a quarter. If they say that you do 1/5, so you divide a figure, it could be a square or circle, anything into 5 equal parts and shade one part. So this becomes a half, a third, a quarter, a fifth. These are 6 equal parts and one is shaded, so this becomes 1/6. If 2 are shaded, then this will become 2/6. Similarly, this is 1/7, 1/8, 1/9, 1/10, 1/11, and 1/12. So if any shaded question comes to you, you count the total number of parts. That part will become the denominator and the part that is shaded will become the numerator. Or they'll give you a fraction and ask you to shade it. Then you will count the total number of parts and whatever the numerator is, you will just shade that part. Okay, so I hope diagrammatic representations of fractions are clear to you. Now let's come to what are equivalent fractions. Now, equivalent fractions is the fraction that you get by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same number. For example, if you have 2/4 and you multiply the numerator by 2, so you also multiply the denominator by 2 and that gives you 4/8. These two are equivalent fractions. Why? Because they can be reduced to 2/4. So this is 2/4, that is 4 parts and 2 shaded. Okay, and this represent a half. If you convert it into 8 parts and share 4/8, you can see the shaded proportion still is the same, that is a half. So this is a concept of equivalent fractions, which means you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So the fraction that comes are equivalent. So for example, let's try this question. You have been given 2/7 and you need to find 3 equivalent fractions. So the first equivalent fraction I can find by multiplying both by 2. You can multiply by any number, 2, 3, 4, 5, your wish, but you need to make sure you need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So if you multiply 2 by 2, you get 14. So that is one equivalent fraction. The second equivalent fraction we can find by multiplying by 3. So 2 times 3 is 6 and 7 times 3 is 21. Okay, so that's the second equivalent fraction. The third equivalent fraction I can find by multiplying by 4. So 2 times 4 is 8 and 7 times 4 is 28. So these are the 3 equivalent fractions of 2/7. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. Now let's find for 3/4. Now 3/4 we multiply both by 2, so that will give us 6/8. So this is the first equivalent fraction. The second equivalent fractions we'll find by timesing it by 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12. And the next equivalent fractions we'll find by timesing it by 4. 3 times 4 is 12 and 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. 3/5. So the first equivalent fractions is multiplying by 2. So that becomes 6/10. Then multiplied by 3, that becomes 9/15. And then multiplied by 4, which becomes 12/20. So this is how you work out the equivalent fractions. Now, other type of question that can be asked is, they'll give you either a numerator or a denominator of an actual fraction and ask you to find the missing. So 1/8 to 16. Now how you convert 8 into 16? You multiply by 2. So the same way you will multiply the numerator. So 1 times 2. So the missing fraction would be 2/16. Let's do another example. 3/4 is to 18 over. So first find how we converted 3 into 18. We times it by 6. So we'll also times the numerator by 6. So this is 24. So these are the two types of questions that can be asked in equivalent fractions. They can ask you to find the equivalent fractions or find the missing fractions. So I hope this concept is clear to you. Now let's move on to the next bit. Next bit is very important, that you need to find the HCF and the LCM. Now this is another topic of finding the highest common factor and least common multiple, but I'm going over this here because in fractions you need to understand how to find the highest common factor in order to simplify the fractions and least common multiple to add or subtract the fractions. Now, for finding the LCM and the HCF, we will take help of these Venn diagrams. One circle we dedicate to one number and the other circle we dedicate to other number. For each of these numbers, we'll be finding the prime factors. Now, how we work out the prime factor for 24? We do 2 times. So how do we work out the prime factors of 24? It is 8 times 3. So 8 times 3 is 24. Now 3 is a prime factor, so I have circled it. Then 8 is still not a prime factor, so I'll break it again. That becomes 2 times 4. 2 is a prime factor. I have circled it. Then 4 can be broken down into 2 into 2. So the factors of 24 would be 2, 2, 2, and then 3. Now let's come to 36. 36 can be broken down into 2 times 18. Circle 2 because it's a prime factor. 18 is broken down into 3 and 6. Circle 3. 6 will be broken down into 2 and 3. So the factors of 36 are 2, 3, 2, and 3. Now when you make a Venn diagram, the common factors you will write in the middle. So 2 is common in both of them. Another 2 is common in both of them, and 1, 3 is common in both of them. So 2, 2, 3 we'll write here. Now for 24 we are left with 1, 2 which we'll write here, and for 36 we are left with 1, 3 which we'll write here. Now this will make a Venn diagram. Now from this Venn diagram, how do we work out the highest common factor? The common numbers are the highest common factor. So 2, 2, 3. will be your highest common factor, which is 12. And for the least common multiple, we multiply this, the middle, and this section. So this is 2, this is 12, this is 3, which gives 72 as a least common multiple. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. Let's take another example. Let's start with 36 and 48. So first step is we'll find the factors of 36 and 48. Let's start with 36. Now 36 is 2 times 18. So we'll make the tree diagram where 2 is my prime factor, so I'll circle it. 18 is still not a prime factor, so we will break 18 further, and 18 can be broken down into 2 times 9, and then 9 can be broken down into 3 and 3. So all the factors of my number 36 are 2, 2, 3, and 3. Now let's come to the factors of 48. Now 48 can be written as 2 times 24. 24 can be written as 2 times 12. 12 further broken down into 2 times 6, and 6 is broken down into 2 times 3. Right? So my factors of 48 are 2, 2, 2, 2, and 3. Now let us make a Venn diagram. So this is my Venn diagram for 36 and 48. This is for my 36 and this is for my 48. Now what are the factors that are common? 2 is common in both of them, so we'll write 2 in the middle. Another 2 is common in both of them, so we'll write 2 in the middle. And next 3 is common in both of them, we'll write 3 in the middle. Now for 36, which is still not cancelled, 1, 3. And for 48, what is not cancelled? 2 and 2. Now that makes our Venn diagram. Now what is the highest common factor of this? This middle number, which is 2 times 2, which is 4 times 3 is 12. So HCF of 36 and 48 is 12. Now let's come to LCM. LCM would be multiplying these three sections. So this is 3 times 12 times 4. So that becomes 144. Okay, so I hope this example is clear to you. Let's go over one more example, which is 12 and 30. Now let's do 12 and 30. Now for 12 and 30, we will make the prime factors. So 2 times 6, 2 is circle, 6 becomes 2 times 3. So that makes the factors of 12. Now factors of 30 are 2 times 15, and 15 would be 3 times 5. Now let's make a Venn diagram. This is for 12. This is for 30. Now what is common? 2 is common in both of them. That comes in the center. Then 3 is common. That comes in the center. So for 12, we are left with 1, 2. And for 30, we are left with 1, 5. Now what will be the highest common factor? Highest common factor would be this center. So highest common factor is 6. And least common multiple is 2 times 6 times 5, which is 60. Okay, so I hope this concept of HCF and LCM is clear to you, and you should be able to find the HCF and LCM of any two numbers. Now let's move on to the simplifying fractions. Now in order to do simplifying fraction, you have to find the highest common factor and divide the numerator and denominator by the highest common factor. Now it is 15 over 25. Now what is the factor which divides both 15 and 25? It means that in which times table you get both 15 and 25. The first thing that comes to my mind is 5. So I'll divide 15 by 5. That gives me 3. 25 by 5. That gives me 5. So that's a simplified fraction. Let's come to another one. 18 over 42. 18 over 42, I can see it's the multiple of 2. So if I divide by 2, I might get a number which is still not simplified because 2 is not the highest common factor of 18 and 42. Now you can do that Venn diagram thing and work out the highest common factor of 18 and 42. And if you think that is a little bit lengthy, then you can divide it by 2 together. So that becomes 9 over a 21, which can still be divided further. So you can divide this further by 3, and that will give you 3 over 7. Or if you do it by the Venn diagram thing, you will find that the highest common factor in 18 over 42 is 6. So if you divide by 6, you can get 3 over 7. Now let's move on to 16 over 32. Now the highest common factor of 16 and 32 is 8. So you divide by 8. That gives you 2 over 4. Hang on, it's still not the highest common factor. So you'll further divide it by 2 and you get half. So the highest common factor of 16 over 32 is 16, and you can directly get a half, or you can divide it by 2 or 4 or 8 and keep on dividing unless you get a simplified answer. For 21 and 42, it seems you can divide it by 3 and 7 both. We should go with the highest common factor. So let's divide by 7, and that gives you 3 over 6, which is again not simplified. We'll divide it by 3 further, and that gives you a half. So the highest common factor of 21 and 42 is 21, which gives half. So I hope simplifying fractions is clear to you, and you should be able to simplify any fractions given to you. Either you can start dividing by smaller numbers like 2, 3, 4, or you can work out the highest common factor and you can divide it only once and get the simplified number. Now let's see what are top-heavy or mixed fractions or improper fractions. Now top-heavy fraction means when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So we can write it into this form. Now this form is you have whole number at the side and then a fraction. Now how you can convert this mixed fraction into a normal fraction, the rule says just multiply these two numbers, the whole number with the denominator, and add the top number. Okay, so you multiply these two and add the top number, that will give you a normal fraction. Now let's try this question. This is 532. So the denominator remains the same, which is 2. You do 5 times 2, which is 10, add 3, which is 13, that becomes 13 over 2. Let's do another example. 6 1/5. So you make the denominator the same, which is 5. Do 6 times 5, which is 30, add 1, so that is 31 over 5. Now 3 1/9, so 9 is the denominator. 9 times 3 is 27, add 1, 28 over 9. Okay, so I hope this first thing is clear to you. Now next is how to convert the top-heavy fraction into mixed fraction. The thing is you divide the denominator. You divide the numerator with the denominator. So let's divide 27 over 5 by a bus stop method. So when we divide 27 over 5, we get 5 times 5, which is 25, with the remainder 2. Now this becomes your quotient and 2 is your remainder. So what you do is you make the denominator the same, which is 5. The quotient, it comes here. That makes the whole number. So 5 will be the quotient. At the top, we have the remainder, which is 2. So it becomes 5 2/5. Okay, so I hope it is clear to you. You have to put the remainder at the top, quotient the whole number, and denominator the same. Let's take another example, 39 with 6. So we'll put the denominator the same, so which is 6. 39 divided by 6 gives 6 as a whole number and 3 as a remainder. So this becomes the mixed fraction. 51 over 7, 7 remains the denominator. You divide 51 by 7, that becomes 7 as a whole number and 2 as a remainder. Okay, so you should be able to do these questions, how to convert a top-heavy fraction into a mixed fraction and a mixed fraction into a normal fraction. Now when we do add, subtract, divide, we'll also do them with the mixed fractions as well. Now let's see ordering fractions. Now for the ordering fractions, what you have to do, you need to make denominator the same with the least common multiple and then order with the numerator. So here we'll find the common denominator of 5, 4, 9, 6. Now what is the technique to do that? Write 5, 4, 9, 6 and do the least common multiple. Now to do the least common multiple, we'll start with the smallest number, which is 2. You cannot divide 5 by 2. So you write 5 as it is. But you can divide 4 by 2. That gives you 2. You cannot divide 9 by 2. So write 9 as it is. But you can divide 6 by 2. That becomes 3. Now you still have a multiple of 2 here. So we'll again divide by 2. 5 remains as it is. 2 gets 1. 9 becomes like this. 3 becomes 3. So we'll keep on doing this unless we get 1 and all. Next number, you have no number that is divided by 2. So now we'll start with 3. Now you cannot divide 5 by 3. So write 5, 1. But 9 can be divided. That becomes 3. That becomes 1. Now we can again do by 3. So that becomes 5, 1, 1. Now my 3 of the numbers have converted into 1. Only 1 is left, which can be divided by 5. So that becomes 5, 1, 1, 1. So you multiply all these numbers, that becomes the least common multiple. So that is 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12, 12 times 3 is 36, and 36 times 5 is 180. So 180 will be the least common multiple of all of them. Now we will convert everything into 180. Now 180 divided by 5. So what number you multiply 5 with to get 180? It's 36. So you multiply the numerator by 36 and the top by 36. So that becomes 36 over 180. Now what number you multiply 4 with to get 180? That becomes 45. So you multiply the top by 45 and the bottom as well by 45. So 45 times 3 is 135. Now what you multiply 9 with to get 180, that is 20. So you multiply the top as well. So 40 over 180. And with 6, it becomes 30. So that becomes 30. Now all the denominators are same. I can order it. So my smallest number is 30 over 180, followed by 36 over 180, followed by 40 over 180, and the last one is 135 over 180. Now 30 over 180 is 1/6. 36 over 180 was 1/5. 40 over 180 was 2/9, and 135 over 180 is 3/4. So I hope this is clear to you. So the thing is, you just need to make a common multiple, find the least common multiple, make the common denominator, and then order the rest. Okay, now let us move on to adding the fractions. Now, to add the fractions, you need to make sure the denominator is same. You just add the numerators. So let's see the first example. 1/5 plus 3, 5. So my denominator is the same. So that is 5. I'll just add the numerator, which is 3 plus 1, which is 4. But in my second question, my denominators are not the same. So I need to make the common denominator. Now 7 and 5, the least LCM of them will be 35. So 1 over 7, I need to convert it into 35, and 2 over 5 into 35. Now what number you multiplied 7 with to get 35? You'll multiply by 5. So you'll also multiply the top by 5, and 1/7 fraction will convert into 5 over 35. Similarly, 2/5 you need to multiply by 7. So the fraction will turn out to be 14 over 35. Now my denominators are the same. So I'll just add the numerator. So that becomes 19 over 35. Now for 1/4 plus 2/5, my least common multiple will turn out to be 20. So how to find the least common multiple? Either you can do the Venn diagram thing, or you can do this bit, 5 and 4. So you'll start dividing by 2. That becomes 2. Then again 2. and then 5. So you will see my least common multiple is 20. So 20 will be my denominator. Now what number I'll multiply 4 with to get 20? That is 5. So my fraction is 5 over 20. For 2/5, it will be 8 over 20. I'll add them. That will be 13 over 20. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Now let us move on to addition of a mixed fractions. So for a mixed fraction, you just add the whole numbers. So 6 plus 1 is 7. And then you add 3/5 and 2/4. So 3/5 and 2/4 would be, you'll make a common denominator, which is 20. 5 times 4, so that becomes 12. And 4 times 5 is 20, that is 10. So that is 22 over 20. I can simplify that, like divide it by 2 number. So that is 11/10. Okay, similarly, we'll do the other number. 3 add 2 is 5. Then we'll do 1/5 plus 1, 2. Now 1/5 plus 1, 2 is the common denominator to be 10. And that will become 2 plus 5, which is 7/10. So the answer would be 5 7/10. So I hope the adding of fractions is clear to you, whether it is a mixed fraction or a normal fraction. Now let's come to subtracting. Now subtracting works the same way as the addition. You just need to make the denominator the same and just subtract the numerator. And if the denominator is not the same, you need to find the LCM, that is the least common multiple. With whichever way you know, you can find the least common multiple and then subtract the numerators. Now let's take an example. 7 over 5 minus 3 over 5. The denominator is the same. That becomes 5. 7 take away 3 is 4. So 4 over 5 is my answer. But for the next question, 1 over 5 and 1 over 7, my denominator is not the same. So I'll make the common denominator, which is 35. And 5 times 7 gives me 35. So that becomes 7 over 35. And for 1/7, that will become 5 over 35. So my answer would be 7 take away 5, which is 2 over 35. Let's take another example. 2/5 minus 1/3. What would be the LCM? 15. So that becomes 15. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times 5 is 5. So 6 take away 5 is 1/15. Now, for the other question, which is 5 3/5 minus 2 1/4, you first take away the whole numbers. So 5 take away 2 is 3. Then you can do 3/5 minus 1/4. Now for 3/5 minus 1/4, we'll again take the common denominator, which is 20. And this will become 12 minus 5, which is 7 over 20. So that is your answer. Similarly, for the other one, 3 minus 1 is 2. And what is a half minus 1/6? For the half minus 1/6, we'll make 12 the denominator. So 6 minus 2, which is 4, which is simplified to 1/3. So 2 1/3 is the answer. So I hope now subtraction is clear to you. Now let's move on to multiplication. Now multiplication is very simple. Just multiply the numerator, multiply the denominator, and if you want, you can simplify by dividing it by the common factor. Now, a half times 2/3. So 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. You can simplify that. 1/3 is the answer. 1/5 times 6, 3. So you can cancel 3 times 1, 2. So the answer would be 2/5. For this question, we can cancel 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9. So the answer is 1/15. For these types of question, you can convert them into normal fractions. So 1 times 5 is 5 plus 1 is 6. So that becomes 6 over 5 multiplied by 6 times 2 is 12. Add 1, which is 13 over 2. And then we can cancel this. So that is 39 over 5 is the answer. For the next question, 2 times 2 is 4, times add 3, 7 over 2 times 6 times 5 is 30, add 1, 31 over 6, and then we can multiply. So 31 times 7 is 217 divided by 12. Okay, so I hope multiplying is clear to you. Now let's move on to dividing. For dividing, the rule is keep first fraction the same. The divide sign can be changed into a multiplying fraction by flipping the second fraction. Second fraction flipping means make numerator the denominator and denominator the numerator, and a normal multiplication. Let's take an example. You have 1 6, so we'll keep 1 6 as it is. Divide we'll put into a multiply sign, and a half we'll flip it. That becomes 2 over 1. Now we can normally multiply. 2 times 1 is 2, 6, so the answer would be 1/3. Okay, now let's take another example. This is 2/5 divided by 8 over 15. 8 over 25. So 2/5 remains like this. Divide changes into multiply, and 8 over 25 becomes 25 over 8. Now we can cancel. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. So the answer becomes 5 over 4. Let's do the next example. 3 over 7. Multiply. Flip it over. Try to cancel it. So 7 times 1. 7. 1. 6. So 7 over 6 is the answer. For the next question, we'll multiply, put it into a normal fractions. 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 is 6. 6 over 5 divided by 7 over 3. And then we can flip the next fraction over. Okay, so the answer would be 18 over 35. Let's move on to the next one. 5 times 3 is 15. Add 2 is 17. Divided by 5. Multiply. 4. Let's divide. 4 and 1 is 5 over 4. Then we will flip it to 17 over 5. Multiply 4 over 5. Now we'll do the normal multiplication. That is 25, 68. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you how to divide the fractions. Now, how do you find the fraction of an amount? Now, fraction of an amount is they'll give you a fraction and a number, and you need to find the fraction of that. Now, it follows the simple rule. Do the normal multiplication. For example, this is half of 80. So 80 times a half. So you put that over 1 and you do normal multiplication. The answer would be 40. Then it is a quarter. So a quarter times 80, you make that over 1. That gives you 20 as an answer. 3/4 is a quarter times 3. So that becomes 60. 2/5, so 80 over a 1 times 2 over 5. We can divide 16, so the answer is 32. It's simple. You just do normal multiplication. So the first question, let's try this. 2/3 of 60. So 2/3 times 60 over 1. We can cancel. So the answer is 40 pounds. A quarter of 24. So a quarter times 24 over a 1. So that becomes 6 grams. 3/5 of 80. 5/5 of 80 pounds. So we'll do the same thing. 3 over 5 times an 80 over 1. We'll try to simplify it here. So that becomes 16 times 3, which is 48 pounds. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Now let's move on to the fraction, decimal, and percentages. Now this is a very important concept. You should know how to convert each of them. So fractions to percentages. If you have a fraction, you need to convert it into percentage. You multiply by 100. On the other hand, if a percentage is given to you, just divide by 100 and that gives you a fraction. For decimal to percentage, you multiply by 100. For percentage to decimal, you divide by 100. And for fraction to decimal, you just divide the numerator by denominator. And for decimal to fractions, you just convert the decimal by making it over 10, 100 or 1000 depending on after how many places there's a decimal point. Now let's take an example. For example, a quarter is given to you, which is a fraction. To convert it into a percentage, you multiply by 100. So a quarter times 100, we'll do a normal multiplication thing. That becomes 25%. Now to convert 25% into a decimal, that becomes 25 over 100. Now 25 over 100 converts into 0.25. So that gives you a quarter into a decimal and into a percentage. Now let's take an example. Convert these fractions to decimals. So that is 3/4. Now since it is a 3/4, what you will be doing will be dividing normally. So 4 with 3 doesn't go, so that becomes 0. Then you have this, that becomes 28. So that becomes 0.75. 25 over 100 becomes 0.25. Now convert these decimals into percentages. The formula is multiply by 100. So 0.5 divided by 100 is 50%. And 0.84 multiplied by 100 is 84%. Now 15% to fraction, percent is over 100, that becomes 15 over 100. And if you want, you can simplify that. So we can divide it by 5. So that gives 3 over 20. And 25% is 25 over 100, which can be written as a quarter. So I hope this is clear to you. Now let's see fraction word problems. The first question is, Mary has 40 kgs of cake and she gave a quarter to Danny and 1/5 to Annie. Find the amount they have now. Now, what is the amount given to Danny? That is a quarter of 40 kg. So a quarter of 40 kg is a quarter times 40 over a 1, that becomes 10 kg. So Danny has 10 kg. How much Annie has? Annie has 1/5. So 1/5 of 40, which is 1/5 times 40 over a 1, which is 8 kg. So total 18 kg they have taken. So how much will Mary have now? Mary will have 40 take away 18, which will be how much? That will be 22 kgs. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Let's move on to the next question. It says that the price of the t-shirt is £60 and 2/3 off is given. So how much is the off? That is 2/3 of £60. So 2/3 of 60 is 2 times 3 times by 60 over a 1. So that is £40. So how much is the off £40? So what will be the sale price now? 60 take away 40, which is £20. Let's move on to the next question. There are 600 students in the bus, 200 are boys, 2/3 of the girls are in blue shirt, and a quarter of the boys are in the blue shirt. You need to calculate the number of boys and girls in blue shirt. Now you can pause this video, have a go at this question, and then come back. Now how we'll do this question? First of all, I'll find the number of boys and girls. So what is the number of boys? That is 200. And how many girls are there? The girls are 400 because the total is given to you as 600. Now, how many boys are there in the blue shirt? That is a quarter of 200. So a quarter of 200 would be a 4 multiplied by 200 over 1. So that is 50, which means that 50 boys are in the blue shirt. Now for the girls, it is 2/3. So 400, 2/3 of 400 is 400 divided by 2/3. Okay. Now this will not give you a whole number, right? So this is 800 over 3. Now generally in the exam you will get that number that can be easily divided by and you get a whole number. So we can make this 2/4 of the girls. Okay, so we'll make 2/4 of the girls That gives how much? That gives 200. So 200 of the girls and 50 of the boys are in blue shirt. Let's move on to the last question. There are 60 counters in the bag. Jamie removed 3/5 of the counters. So how many are removed? 3/5 of 60. So 60 divided by 3/5, that is 36. So 36 counters are removed. So how many are left now? 60 over 3/6, which is 24. So 24 counters are left now. Okay, now let's move on to the last concept, ratio fraction problems. Now, if the ratio is given to you, what you have to do is add the two ratios that will become the denominator. So, if 2:5 is blue is to red, it means that 2 out of 7 are blue and red is, total number of part is 7 and the red is 5. So 5/7. Okay, now next question, in a bag 2/3 of the sweets are red. So red becomes 2/3. So how many would be blue? Blue would be 1 take away 2/3, which will give 1/3. So what will be the ratio? The ratio is 2:1. Okay, so I hope this fraction ratio problems is also clear to you. Now that's all you need to know in the fraction topic. Now we have covered everything that you need to know. So what would be the next step? The next step is do all the exam questions on the topic of fractions. Now where will you find these exam questions? The link is mentioned in the description box below. You can find all the exam question on this topic and you need to try that. Very, very important. Okay, and you can also come to my website and get the questions on fractions. Okay, and also check your specification to make sure that whatever thing is there in fractions is crystal clear to you. Now, after doing the exam questions, if you like this video, then do subscribe to my channel and let me know in the comment section which is the topic of the fraction that you found very difficult and which topic you find very easy. Okay, why I'm asking you that? Because if you tell me what other topics you're finding complicated, I'll make more videos on it. Okay, and also, do not forget to join our Facebook group, which is named as Get A Stars in GCSE and A-Level Sciences and Maths by Mahima Laroya. Do join that group because there you will get all the resources, all the advice, and all the study help for free. So I will see you in the Facebook group and I look forward to your like and subscribe, and do not forget to click the bell icon as well because that will notify you whenever I'll put the next video. So I'll see you now in the next video. Till then, happy revising.